This is a story about a fictional place, a fictional mailbox called 196 Davis Mill South. And there was a mailbox that was there. There was no house or any other buildings around it, but there was always mail in the box. It had no door on it, but because you can see the mail when you go by. Anyhow, I used to take my grandson by there, like back to the school, and I got to thinking about what if that was a drop box of some sort, or there was something untoward going on. And right behind the mailbox was a road that just seemed to drive off into infinity. That's the mailbox. And there's the road that seemed to drive off to infinity right beside it. So I called this short story 196 Davis Mill South. There's a road not far from here has a mailbox at the end. It meets the road I drive a lot, Davis Mill South. The number on the mailbox is freehand painted 196. The road is just a cart path through a wood. You can see it goes about 100 to 200 yards and bears to the left. I think it goes into the back of a very nearby subdivision, and this is where my mind starts to wander. The following account is pretty fictitious, but I think something, like I said, untoward goes on at the end of that wooded path. My curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to drive through the subdivision, look in between the houses at the backyards, and try to determine if that wooded road met any one of those backyards. One very nice house off to the right had a couple of acres of land behind it. The end of the yard was covered in dense trees and foliage, as if trying to hide something beneath the trees, branches, and bushes in that yard. Just past the house was a cul-de-sac. I turned around to leave the subdivision, and passing by that house on the way out, looking through the foliage in that backyard, I saw a glint of metal and something like a reflection of glass. My heart began to race because I knew I was onto something. What I was onto, I did not know. So here my imagination begins. Chapter 1. A black sheep alcoholic druggy brother of a well-to-do sister and her family camped in that backyard in the smallest of a single-person camper I've ever seen. Like the smallest egg-shaped slipstream, all silver with just enough side room for a skinny door and a front and back roll-out windows. Of course, on my day of discovery, I just saw that glint of metal and glass. Just a glint of it, metal and glass. I was not aware of that dark shape hiding within. Surely he was hiding. Why would any human want to live in such a restriction? But therein begins the mystery. Why was he hiding in that dense, shallow backyard copse of trees? Once I began my Google search of the Carsons, I had her name, her maiden name, then looked for the sibling of her and her husband. He had none, and his parents were deceased. She had two other sisters and two brothers. One of her brothers was an Afghanistan war vet. On Googling him, I found he had PTSD, no surprise there, and an alcohol and other drugs problems. So I took an educated guess. Sure enough, that dark shape was Enoch Inman. That camper was a mess, and Enoch was more of the same. When you see a giant humanoid, no matter the size of the giant, and your commander makes you all sign an ND document for life, yeah, you probably want to drink and drug away your predicament. Nightmares and an oath of silence does not make allowances for the couch of shrinks. He said, I'm telling you both, Bill. I can't tell you. They'd kill me and you both, and the young'uns, I swear. Of course, after Enoch finished his meal at her table and shuffled his remains back to the camouflage slipstream, Bella and her husband Bill would convince each other that Enoch had to have seen some wickedness and took the witch's brews to dim those visions. And mailbox 196 on Davis Mill, I think his sister and her husband thought it was just as well that neighbors and authorities should not know of the presence of her nut job brother. Their mailbox on the street of the subdivision. Hopefully, since they kept pretty much to themselves and allowed no sleepovers for the kids, there would be no notice of the darkness that always, and I mean always, went in and out of their home unseen through the centered back door. He would come and eat rarely with them, and maybe a weekly bath and change of clothes, but mostly he'd pick up his paper plate of food with a plastic fork and eat alone in the camouflage. Did I say he was a dark presence? Well, that's not completely correct. You see, I too was a military man of not a long time, but long enough to be stealthy and unseen, if need be. So I took it upon myself in free time to lie in dense foliage until I knew Enoch Inman was back in his egg for the night's duration. And then wait on my plan to sneak close enough to his cocoon to listen and see what I might gain as insight into the character of Inman. The summer nights were warm, and Enoch left the windows rolled open, screened to keep out the night bugs, but not enough to keep in his conversations. A lot of elderly folk, when left alone by children and a deceased spouse, will often talk quite a bit to themselves, and they go about the boredom of their final day routines. I even catch myself engaged in that same type of activity from time to time, but I digress. So back to Enoch and what I heard. This was around 8:45 p.m. or so. This is what I heard. The Lord is my... Jeez, man, this is freaky. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now this is a picture I kind of took through the screen of the slip screen. And I don't know if you can tell that's a bad photo, but that was what the slipstream trailer looked like in the dark, hanging below the shadows of the trees right above it, hanging down on it. And after that prayer, the dark cocoon became light. Did you hear what I said? He was in the darkness saying the Lord's Prayer. And then it just lit up. And it remained solely inside that heavenly slipstream, flowing inches from my face. A prayer and a confined light. A prayer. He was serious when he was praying that now. I didn't do it justice. A prayer and a confined light. What the hell was going on in there? That's it. I left and never had got a chance to get back yet, but I heard of a story of a giant in Afghanistan that was killed by the military. And I know at a CERN in Switzerland and France, they've got this huge hadron collider that people talk about has open portals and things like that, but I don't know anything at all. I can't comment one way or the other about that because I don't know. But it was a confined light, and he was saying the Lord's Prayer, and he was saying something along the lines of, and then the light appeared, and I just got on out of there.